Hey guys, Test Treatment here. Today I'm setting up a 30 centimeter cube aquarium. This is by Wio, and it's a 30 by 30 by 30 cube. I'm quite looking forward to doing it. I used this tank in my Aquatic Habitats book project a few times, and I want to set it up as the smallest display in my gallery here. I've been thinking about what I wanted to do. It's going to be chiefly moss based, but I saw a tank a while ago on the ADA website which really inspired me. I was thinking of doing something sort of similar with the materials that I have available to me. So let's do it. So this cube tank is a nano tank. Again, I'm not very good at nanos. I find them quite challenging because there's just not a lot of room for flexibility and to play around, but I want to have a go. I'm using a Wio Slim light. It's a really good little light, and I'm using an old filter they had in here, which is a JBL Crystal Profi External. So it's a massive filter for the tank, but I really believe in overfiltration and it being as efficient as possible. I've been thinking about what fish I want to put in here, and I decided on Celestial Pearl Danios. That's Danio margaritatus, because I've got a huge one, a male, really, really big. And I want to get him some friends and some females and put him in here. It's a good species because it's a nano species, very small. In terms of being ethical, we can't put anything too big in here or anything that needs too much space. I wanted to create something that, if it wasn't in the gallery space, would look good from at least 3 angles. In the gallery, because of the space, it's going to be hard to view it from any other direction than the front, but still going to think about that layout. This is a sort of one I've done earlier. I've tied some Taxiphyllum sp spiky, this is a Tropica plant, onto some wood that I've been given by Aquarium Gardens, so thank you very much to them for donating it. And I'm going to start putting this tank together. I've got a rough idea in my head. I haven't sketched this one out, so I'm going to sort of go with the flow a little bit and see what comes about. But I've got this tank in my mind from ADA. It's a fantastic display in a 30 centimeter cube, and I'm thinking to do something similar. So let's see how it evolves. So I've got a little light background on here. It's by The Light Ground. Unfortunately, one of the LEDs in the bottom corner has broken. I've not really used it very often, this light panel, so it's a bit disappointing. Got a foil, this white to blue gradient. You might not be able to see that just now on the camera. And in fact, yes, that may be a bit tricky, but hopefully once there's water and the decor is in here, you'll be able to see that better. I'm going to start by putting in my substrate. I've got some Tropica aquarium powder, fine grain substrate, which I'm going to put in the tank at the back. So let's do that. Put quite a large amount of substrate in for this tank, but that's okay. I want to make sure there's plenty of medium to plant into, make our lives easier. So I'm going to start by placing the wood. What I've done is I've practiced a little bit where I wanted the wood to go and what shape I wanted it to sit before tying on my moss. I've used some ADA moss cotton, which is great stuff. I got it from Aquarium Gardens. Basically, it's like any other cotton thread. First, you tie it onto your wood, but by the time the moss has self-adhered to the wood and is covering it, the cotton will basically rot away. So you won't see it, and you'll just have your lovely moss. So I'm using the spiky moss, Taxiphyllum sp spiky, on the wood. So I'm going to put that in first. Bring this light forward. Sitting there. This other piece. It's perhaps not the most inspired hardscape. I was doing for something simple, something that would fill up the mid-levels there a little bit as well. I'm going to be using a lot of moss around the base, which will help the wood sort of blend into place. But I'm going to use another material which is a bit less compromising, which is a rock. This is jade stone. It's by Wio. It has this lovely green sort of malachite and almost obsidian blacks in it at times. It looks really good under the lighting. Once it's wet, it'll give us lovely green colours, which will combine with the brutal green of the rock with the soft green of the mosses. And I really like this piece. I've sort of dug it out of my garden where it was lying with lots of other bits of the rock that we used for the book project. And I'm just going to put it in here gently. Also sort of stops the wood from slipping down, but it looks a bit in your face at the moment, but it will be softened in time. At the front, I've left this open space. That's because I'm going to use some gravel. This, if you can see that. This is a small sort of pea gravel mixture. This is actually it's the Relief series gravels. It's bloody heavy. I got mine from Aquarium Gardens. It's called Relief series. It's a decorative gravel. It's really nice stuff. This bag is filthy because it's been out in my garden for the past 6 months. And I'm just going to use my hand. You can see the production values that went into this video, huh? Just going to use my hand to put it in. The original ADA tank, which inspired me, used something similar, perhaps a little lighter. But I'm going with this. We're doing it my way. And it's going to contrast a bit with the stone that's in there, but because of the moss that's going in here, we're going to hide that. And it's just to do something a bit different from the normal. I don't need substrate right at the front. I'm not using the carpeting plant species. So, just going to use some of the gravels. It's also good because we're using another moss at the lower levels, and that can sort of find its way into these stones. So we only needed 4 or 5 handfuls there. And I'm going to spray my moss before it dries out. Doesn't like drying out. Also moisturize the substrate a bit before we plant. Start off with a tropica plant. This is Blixa japonica in the 1-2 grow in vitro pots. We'll be using one of those. The other moss I'm going to be using in here, kind of at the lower level, is the Taxiphyllum barbiera, now called Bogor moss by Tropica, what you and I might call Java moss. So we're going to be using some pots of that. The other plant that I'm going to try out in here, it's quite a rare plant in fact, this is Ludwigia inclinata green. Now, this is a step in a different direction from what that ADA tank was doing, but I think we have an opportunity to see if the plant takes off. I got this from Wildwood's World of Water near Enfield, near London, here in the UK. I'm going to see what it does. In Brazil, I've encountered the green form of Ludwigia inclinata growing in a shaded creek in the Taquari River Basin. I'm curious to see how it goes in the tank here. I've got the red form in another tank, which we're seeing how that develops, but I'm going to try this one. Just going to drop it in the 45. It does not like being out of water, not for even a small amount of time, so I'm going to try that. Just to show you, this is a broken leaf of Nymphaea pygmaea, Nymphaea alba. It's a dwarf pond lily, and this is the broken stem, but I've got a rhizome in the tank, which I'm not going to pull out because I don't want it to be out of the water. Just going to go in here. Has these beautiful red undersides to the leaves, and I think it's going to be a really nice display plant in here actually. It doesn't get so large that it would drown out the lights of the other plants, and it's very easy to thin out, so I'll be adding that in there. I've got this broken leaf that was growing in my very big tank, and I've trimmed off all the really tall leaves, leaving it only with the shortest ones so that we don't get great tangles of Medusa-like stems of Nymphea in here. Finally, I've got 2 specimens of Eriocaulon SP Vietnam. And I'm actually going to blend that in with the Blixa japonica. But it's a similar shape, slightly different color, slightly different texture and rigidity to the leaves. And I'm just curious to see how they would look together, blended. And it breaks up the japonica, stops it looking too much like sort of, well, a very contrived bush in there. So I'm going to try that. Not a lot of room in here to plant, but we'll see how we go. So the in vitro pot of Blixa, let's see if we can get in here. The in vitro pot of the Blixa has lots of little plantlets in. I'm just going to pull those apart. Get those root networks. There's a bit of mush in this pot, which I'm not too happy about. But in vitro is such a cost-effective way of doing plants, and these ones have already got nice root systems, which is great. And then I'm just going to plant these in this back corner here. My idea is that this sort of soft Blixa is going to poke up out of the moss, give us a bit of relief from the rather flat nature of the moss, let's say. Don't even know if I'll get the whole pot in here. Go on, in you go. We may need some more gravel at the front. We'll see how we do. Alright, then I've got my 2 specimens of Eriocaulon Vietnam, which I'm going to mix in with the japonica. These came out of the Iwagumi display at Aquarium Gardens. Dave, the owner, was thinning them out, and I thought, there's an opportunity. I'm going to take it, I'm going to plant them back there. Okay. I've actually forgotten one of the plants that we're putting in here. Forgotten to show it to you. I was thinking, I'm trying to remember what I'm planting in the back of the tank, and then I remembered, it is Eleocharis montevidensis. This is one of my favourite plants. These are huge. They're from Tropica. They are kindly provided by, well, I got them at Aquarium Gardens. But yes, you can see they're very tall. In time they can grow rigid and sort of poke up and out the tank. I don't mind if they want to lay flat for a while in here. I'm only going to use a couple of pots in here, or even just start with 1. I've got 4, so I can see what I do. I don't want to have it dominating too much, but I just needed something tall and grassy that would combine nicely with the lilies. I haven't got a lot of room back here now, so just pull this out of its rock wool. Now, the original ADA tank used Eleocharis montevidensis, but my friend Elias of Austria_aquascaping explained to me that the ADA Eleocharis montevidensis, is even more thin-leaved and finer than the Tropica Eleocharis montevidensis. Not sure why, but I think I'm only going to need 1 pot in here, because there's loads of plantlets in this 1 pot. There's a tiny one. And they're quite, they're really tall. They go back there. There we go. Right. That's prepped and ready to go in. planting the Eleocharis montevidensis into here. It's so tall that I'm planting it and then sort of hanging it over the back of the tank. It's up here. Don't know why I thought I would need 4 pots of it. I think 1 is more than enough. You can see the sort of flow of the layout going from here down to the front, diagonally across, slight triangular almost. So I'm planting these tall plants in this rear corner so that they match the flow. The wood comes up and then rises up with the plants. That is the idea. Using some very fine tweezers so I can get down between materials. It's actually going to be quite a lot going on in this tank in terms of texture and different plant height, different leaf shapes and forms. That's okay. Keeps it interesting. Keeps it diverse. Right, that's the Eleocharis in there. Planted in, just hanging. It's going to sort of sit on the surface like this, but we're just going to hang it out for now. Here's some loose Java moss that I had earlier in another display. I'm just going to tuck it there and in the back. I'm going to plant my Nymphea in a sort of little hollow down there. So this Java moss, I'm sort of pushing it a little bit into the substrate. A bit of substrate over it. We've got another portion here. Stuff looks a bit healthier. Just going to push it under. I could have glued it onto pebbles or rocks or wedged it. I'm just pushing it under and around the wood, really. It's a little lazy, really, Ty, but it'll grow quickly. It'll cover the substrate quite fast. Give everything another spray. Alright, we've got some more Java fern, bogor moss. Sorry, Java fern, Java moss, or bogor moss. You get a lot in a pot, like a lot. Fantastic. So I'm pretty much going to just push it down here, wedge some this rock here. In around there, under here, and the last portion, I'm going to use a tiny bit of gravel just to weigh it down before I throw it on the floor. Up here, so put it through here, make sure it's nice and spread out. Then take a handful of the gravel. Just might look a little unsightly, but it's an easy way to keep it down until the moss grows up and around it. That can go there. Still got more moss. It's wonderful. Let's tuck some more back here. So the spiky moss has a slightly different form and look to the Java moss. A little bit around that rock. And I wanted that. I wanted to have the 2 different kinds of moss in here, 2 different textures, both soft, like fine and fluffy, but distinct. And just keeps things interesting. And where can I put the last bit of moss? I'm sure there's a space somewhere. I'll just shove some under here. Okay. Cool. Don't know what you think. Not sure what I think yet, to be honest, but right. Then I've got my Nymphea. See that fat rhizome? I don't know if this is going to be too much and overtake the tank or grow too much. I've got some Nymphea gardneriana, but it's still adjusting. I might swap this out in time, but I'm just with my fingers gently I'm going to push this into the substrate here. There was a hollow. And bring the leaves over here. Just a single plant. Now we can plant the Ludwigia inclinata green therein. Shake some of the water out. Ugh. It's a little tricky. I sort of back myself into a corner by having the tank in the corner. Doesn't give me a lot of room for placing the camera or getting into position. Let's clean that glass a bit. But I've got to work with the space that I have. And I really wanted to do a small tank like this because I wanted to show, or before falling over and knocking over one of these tanks, I wanted to show what you could do in a small tank, given that many people don't have large homes or large spaces, they're living in rented accommodation, and you don't need a massive tank to do something beautiful or different. I was looking at all the different photos and things that were inspiring me about 30 centimeter cube tanks, and lots of things that have been done 1,000 times before. Certainly I'm sort of copying the ADA tank that I saw, but I'm doing it my way with the materials that I've got available. Now in the ADA tank they used Myriophyllum SP, which I think is Myriophyllum SP rorima, very orange, soft, fine textured plant. I'm going to start with Ludwigia inclinata. I'm going to see how it goes. If it gets too dense, too bushy, we'll take it out. We can always change things. But I want to see how it looks in here. I think it'll be a nice, bright, green accent in the mid-water column. So let's go. I'm only going to plant a few stems of it. Not all of it. Here and there. It's just give us some height, something different. Also, it's a pretty rare plant, so I really want to use it. See how it looks. So I'm using my 45p as a holding tank in here. Just put maybe 5 or 6 stems of it in here. Don't want to create a dense bush, we just want some loose individual stems. It's going to break up the form things a little bit. There we go. I think that's probably it. The rest can go in another tank, in a holding tank. Right, the Adiacaris can hang in there. Okay, so I think we're ready to fill it up. Let's get it going. Trusty hose. Nice thing with small tanks, very quick to fill up, easy to do water changes. Just using a tap water, dechlorinated tap in here. To add a little bit more gravel in the front. One of the reasons I wanted to use some tall plants and have the wood coming up, create some broken lines of sight, and some cover in the mid-water column is because the Danio migratatus, Celestipodanias, the males can actually be quite nasty to each other. And if there's no broken lines of sight, if there's no place to go and hide away from a dominant male, they can harass each other, really badly and stress each other out to the point of ill health. So I just want to make sure there's plenty of cover. And the subordinate male can hide if he wants to. And like I said, if the lily gets too big, I will change it out for Nymphea gardneriana. If the Ludwigia inclinata green becomes too dominant, I'll change that out for maybe some of my Myriophyllum SP rorima that I've got in the 75p. Everything can be changed. Nothing has to be set in stone. See what works, what doesn't work. I'm going to be running CO2 on this, particularly because the Ludwigia needs it. I've got my daily fertilizer dosing regime So hopefully plants should be well catered for in here. They've got nutritious substrate in the form of the tropica powder. Let's see how it settles in. I'll be putting some shrimp in and see how they develop, how they settle in. And then after a few weeks, monitoring the water, daily water changes and all the rest, see if we can add some fish. The room is heated to more than 18 degrees. It's summer right now, so it's actually like 26 Celsius in here. It's pretty warm. The fish that are going in here, they can be in a room temperature tank. And I've got a heating system in here with a thermostat heater, so if the temperature drops below 18 Celsius, the heater kicks in. Right, then I'd be ready there to turn off the tap. Turn off this one. Set the Ocaris spread out. I like the way it lies flat like this, actually. Turn it on, see what happens. Hopefully nothing explodes, right? There we go. So we'll see how this does. Bit of condensation on there. Got the Venturi pipe going, so it's using lots of oxygen right now. You know what, I like it, if I say so myself. It's different. It's different than anything I've done before. And like I said, heavily inspired by this ADA tank, which I think is one of Ushida's tanks. It's called Peaceful Nymphaea. I'll put a link up to it. And I think, you know, some people might say, oh, you've just copied it with basic ingredients. So, yeah, I have. You know, imitation is the highest form of flattery. And those guys at ADA know what they're doing. So we'll let this settle in and we'll see how it looks tomorrow. So I'm going to let this settle in now. We'll give it a water change tomorrow, just every day for a week, water changes. Take off any ammonia that's produced by the soil. Keep an eye on it, monitor the plants. I'm going to set up the CO2 system as well in here. I'll be doing some updates on this, and hopefully we can come back to it soon, see how everything has settled in. So, until then, take care, guys.